Warning: the following imagery and content may be disturbing or unsuitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Throughout history, unnatural occurrences have been on the rise, and it's only natural that we, as human beings, begin to seek them out to uncover the truth. Scary stories, urban legends, unresolved mysteries, or otherwise. In this episode of Obscure Occurrences, we'll be talking about an infamous internet horror story, a dark children's song, and an insanely clever murderer who almost got away with it. Our team will take turns digging into these cases, allowing you to investigate along with us. Sit back, relax, and prepare your minds for these obscure occurrences.
Welcome to Obscure Occurrences. My name is Kylie, and with me I have my friends Kennedy and Connor. Today I'll be starting you off with our story, Jeff the Killer, right after these messages. Do you like creepy, chilling stories? Well, this story I'm about to tell you is a story about a quiet teenager who slowly snapped and killed his family. This story is 100% fake, but it's still a good story to talk about and listen to when you're looking for something different. Jeff the Killer is one of the most famous creepypasta stories out there on the internet since 2008. You might have heard of him somewhere out there on YouTube or any other social media you have. Anyways, let's get on with the story. The day Jeffrey Woods and his family arrived at their new home was very smuggy. Jeff wasn't thrilled to be moving to his new home, but his father got a new job and thought it would be best to live in one of those fancy neighborhoods. A week after settling in, one of the neighbors named Barbara invited everyone to her son's Billy's birthday party. The next day, Jeff and his brother Lou were going to the bus stop to their first day of school. Some kids showed up, and the first one with the skateboard said his name was Randy, and the other two joined Keith. Lou was angry that Randy jumped over Jeff with a skateboard and looked like he was about to punch him, but he pulled out a pocket knife. Jeff had a weird feeling, like a burning sensation in his chest. After Jeff beat the three kids out of anger, they both saw the bus coming and began sprinting away from the scene. They made it to school but didn't dare to tell anyone what happened. A day after, a cop showed up at the doorstep. Jeff's mother talked to the officer. Jeff, the mother yelled, "Jeffrey, these officers told me that you attacked three kids. That wasn't regular fighting, they were stabbed." Jeff looked down at the floor, showing his mother that it was true. Lou ran down to the officer to prove that he beat up the kids and took Lou away to juvie. The day of the birthday party for Billy finally arrived. Jeff wasn't happy. He went downstairs in a white hoodie, black jeans. After arriving to the party, Jeff went out seeing kids playing with fake guns and wearing cowboy hats. After playing for a while, Jeff heard a weird rolling noise. His eyes met Randy's as he jumped the fence with his skateboard. Randy looked at Jeff with burning hatred. Then Randy beat Jeff up to the point of almost passing out. Something inside Jeff snaps, all rational thinking gone, and all he can do now is kill. Jeff plunges for Randy to the floor and punches him in the heart a few times till blood leaves his body. He took his last breath and died. Everyone was looking at Jeff, his parents, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith. Although they kept staring, Jeff noticed them both pointing their guns at him and ran upstairs. They shot at him, but missed due to shaking and fear. Jeff grabs the shower rack and rips it off the wall and bashes Troy with it. He grabs Jeff by the neck and shoved him into the wall. A thing of bleach from the top shelf spilled onto both of them. Jeff rose the shower rack and plunged it into Keith's head. As he laid on the floor bleeding to death, he had an ominous smile on his face. "What's so funny?" Jeff asked. Keith held a lighter and flicked it on. "What's so funny is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol." Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him and immediately caught fire. He screamed in pain as the fire burnt his skin. He fell down the stairs, almost dead. The last thing he saw was his parents trying to extinguish the flames. A few weeks later, Jeff woke up as he covered in casts. He couldn't see anything. Soon, the day of removing his cast finally arrived. His family members were all there to see how much damage was done. "Let's hope for the best," the doctor said, unwrapping the bandages. Jeff's mother screamed at the sight of his face, while Jeff's dad and Lou stood there staring at him. Jeff rushed to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. He saw the cause of distress. His lips were burnt to a deep shade of red. His face was was pure white color and his hair singed from brown to black. He touched his face that had a leathery feel to it. "It's not that bad." Jeff laughed. "It's not that bad. It's perfect." He smiled while laughing. What has caused this? Well, if you recall, when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind snapped. Now he's a crazy killing machine. His parents didn't know, of course. His mother looked at the doctor with worry in her eyes. "Don't worry, this is normal behavior." That night, Margaret woke up crying in the hallway. She quietly walked to the bathroom. Jeff's mother's jaw dropped as she saw what Jeff has done to his face. Jeff has burnt off his eyelids and had a huge gash along both his cheeks, making a smile. "Aren't I beautiful?" Jeff asked, smiling. He held a kitchen knife in his hand. "Yes, son. Let me go get that so I can see your beautiful face." She ran down to the bedroom where her husband slept. "Honey, get the gun, Jeff." Jeff stood in the doorway, seeing that she lied, and ran at her with the knife and stabbed her multiple times until she died. Jeff's dad didn't have time to grab the gun and died as soon as his wife did. Lou woke up as he felt he was being stared at. Then he noticed a figure in the darkness. "Jeffrey?" Jeffrey walked into the moonlight, peering through the window. Jeff jumped onto the bed and sliced Lou's face up with a knife and told him to go to sleep.
So this is a pretty well-known story. If you've ever been on the internet,
You've most likely heard about Jeff the Killer.
Especially if you're on YouTube and you listen to creepypasta, but you might not know the full story, which is why it's interesting to hear it.
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about his parents or the birthday party. That.
Yeah.
I didn't know he even had a brother.
Why would they not arrest him or put him in a hospital after he was lit on fire, after killing someone? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it don't make sense, but I don't know. I just think it's cool in either way, but
it's a fun story.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
Go ahead. It's the story.
The fan base is kind of pretty toxic, but I don't know. It's just
it's nostalgic in a way,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Since it's been around since around 2008, especially. But
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, he helped pave the way for creepypastas too. Since he's the most well-known, other creepypastas have most likely come from him as well. So that's pretty neat.
It's one of the biggest reasons creepypasta kind of has its own fan base, which is a really weird way to start it, because it all comes from romanticizing this killer, which we see a lot in horror fandoms.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about the most popular photo of him, the photoshopped one. I don't think anyone knows where the actual photo came from. It just appeared randomly, and then I think someone just made a story about it. But yeah.
yeah.
Well, up next is my own story, Kagome Kagome. Thank you. Welcome back. Now for our next story, we have the story of Kagome Kagome. Kagome Kagome is a type of Japanese children's game, translated into Circle You, where a group of children stand in a circle, hence the name, surrounding a singular kid. Those standing in the circle walk around them, hand in hand, while chanting the song the game was named after. Once the song ends, the blindfolded child must guess who exactly is behind them. The history of this song is pretty dark, going back to World War II, to a time where Nazis once occupied and ran experiments on an isolated orphanage in Japan. Along the time that the scientists stayed there, those experiments led to its first success upon a young girl, her heart stopping, but soon was quickly revived by being shocked. Marking the process down, it began to go to other children in the orphanage, doing the exact same thing to them. And the children who failed the experiments and died were left in the back of the orphanage, outside, said to the caretakers that they'd been adopted. However, things began to turn dark afterwards. Once the experiments ended, it is said that the affected children acted fairly normally, but when they were found to be wandering through the corridors, those who spotted them found eerily happy smiles on their faces, ones that would change to immediate hatred upon being alone with the doctors in the facility. They soon began to single them out, circling them and singing the words to Kagome Kagome. To this day, the orphanage still remains, albeit abandoned. Those who lived nearby avoided it completely, claiming that children there still lived there, now immortal, and that those who choose to go near them are greeted by them, asked to join their game. People who say that they play their game state that the children's expressions turn ugly at the whack of a bat. Those who came back unscathed got by without flinching. However, there are still numerous cases of people exploring the area around the said place and never coming back, being listed as missing. They had flinched. So, yeah, it's partially true in a way.
Yeah, the historical aspect is really interesting considering that Nazi Germany and Japan were supposed to be allies, yet they were doing these terrible experiments on orphans of all people.
Little children.
Yeah.
But I guess it kind of comes to the fact that they just weren't good people.
Yeah. And it's also interesting seeing that there are other nursery rhymes that have deep roots in history, like London Bridge, pretty obvious, and Ring Around the Rosie, which is about the Black Plague and people carrying roses and flowers in their pockets in order to cover up the stench of just death, basically.
Yeah, it's weird knowing like, oh, there's this cutesy little rhymes to play with your friends, but no, they have dark meanings behind them.
The person standing in the middle of the circle, the Oni, I'm pretty sure Oni means like it's some type of Japanese demon of some sort. And I think that's supposed to represent like the scientists, those who are experimenting.
Oh, 100%. Because there's numerous meanings to the song. So it could be anything. Would you like to add anything, Kylie?
I just don't get why they would experiment on children. That's just not okay. I just don't like that at all.
Well, this is terrible, but it would be really easy to experiment on orphans because, like, look at how easy they were able to get away with it. Because they could just tell the people that, like, hey, this kid got adopted, and when in reality they're rotting in the back alley of some building.
If I remember correctly, the thing they were looking for to find immortality wasn't even in the children in the first place, so everything they kind of did to the children were all for nothing.
It's basically the whole Frankenstein thing, where someone dies and you revive them using electric shocks, and I mean that kind of helps now with how what are the things you like clear and then you
those things. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot the word, but yeah, like an electric shock to bring the heart back. Like that's a thing we use now.
Yeah. An everyday, well, not really an everyday advice, like appliance, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's used very commonly now in medical practices. Yeah, it's crazy how history can always come back to us, even if it's terrible and dark.
And it's a good way to, well, not like a good way, but to remember it, to know that this happened is important too, I think.
And speaking of Japanese horror stories, up next we have the story of the Woman of Seven Faces. Welcome back to Obscure Occurrences. Here's our third and final story, Nanagao no Josei, or the Woman of Seven Faces. In the 1980s, Japan was considered to be one of the safest countries in the world. Murder rates were extremely low. So low, in fact, that the police patrolled on bikes and laws weren't as harsh. At the same time, Japan had a 15-year statute of limitations for murder, meaning that 15 years after killing someone, the killer would not receive any charges for the crime whatsoever. They could even brag about the crime publicly if they pleased. At this time, getting away with a crime was difficult but not impossible. Kazuko Fukuda was a woman born in Matsuyama, Japan in 1948. Her parents divorced when she was very young, and her father had vanished completely from her life, making her childhood very rough. She learned from her mother that hard work was the only way to survive as a woman, specifically work that pleased men. Kazuko moved in with her boyfriend when she was 18, the two already searching for quick money. This led them to rob the home of a tax collector. The police efficiently had the couple thrown into prison. Kazuko had experienced life-changing horrors while in prison. Matsuyama prison was notoriously corrupt, with members of the Yakuza, one of Japan's most powerful organized crime groups, treating the prison like a playground. For 2 years, prisoners, Fukuda included, were physically abused by the members. She married twice before settling down after her release. She and her husband had children and were living comfortably, and she was ready to put her past behind her. However, she quickly fell thousands of dollars deep into debt, leading her to drink excessively. In 1982, at 34 years of age, Kazuko had been working as a waitress in a cabaret. She charmed and entertained the men at this nightclub, and often these men would buy drinks for her. Kazuko's flashy personality fit this job like a glove, and she was able to make enough money to get by. However, it was not enough to clear her debt. Another waitress at the club, Atsuko Yasuoka, had caught Kazuko's attention. She was younger, more popular, and earned much more money in tips. Kazuko knew how she would handle her debt. Once after a shift, Kazuko asked Atsuko if she could pay her a visit sometime, to which Atsuko agreed. On August 19, 1982, Fukuda visited Atsuko's lavish apartment. Drowning in jealousy, Kazuko strangled Atsuko with a rope. She returned home to her husband, confessed what she had done, and with him, they looted the apartment. They stole more than enough items from the apartment to pay off her debt. Kazuko and her husband took Atsuko's corpse to the mountain of Matsuyama, where they left her remains. Kazuko's husband turned himself into the police, urging Kazuko to do the same. She refused, not wanting to relive the traumatic events she endured in prison years prior. When called in for questioning, Kazuko took the money she had stolen and fled, leaving behind her husband and children. Now a fugitive, Kazuko traveled by train and ferry across the country. She picked up small jobs here and there, receiving plastic surgery in order to alter her appearance. She had received plastic surgery 6 times, giving her the title of the Woman of 7 Faces. She lived her life fleeing from city to city for 14 years and 11 months, until she was finally caught. Someone recognized her face at a cafe and reported her to the police. She was taken in for an interview, but refused to give fingerprints. She had been drinking, and the police used the bottle she was drinking from to get her fingerprints. Kazuko was arrested with just 3 weeks left before she would have been free.
平成9年、一人の女の逮捕劇が全国から注目を浴びました。整形手術で顔を変えながらおよそ15年間逃亡を続けた福田。
So this story is like, it's the kind of story that like, you know that she did a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know the person this is about. They're not a good person. They've done bad things, but you almost root for them in a way.
Because she was so close.
She was so close. She had 3 weeks left out of 15 years, and she would have gotten away with it.
And the one thing is, like, I know that probably during that time, I don't know how like laws work, like to like leave Japan, like to like move to like a different place. But she could have done that. She could have like saved up enough during that time and just moved off.
Well,
to
she
another
did.
place.
I think it would be terribly inconvenient for her to do that, and it's possible that she could have been deported, and that would have been a quick way for her to get arrested.
That's true. That's true.
But it is like, if you think about it, like what's worth fighting for, you know, out of desperation? She had been abused physically and sexually while in prison. And that kind of trauma, like you never want to relive that. It's bad enough having to live with the memories of that kind of thing.
And to possibly go through it again. I don't blame her. I don't blame her for not wanting to go back there.
And even just falling into debt, like I don't know how she fell into debt. I don't know like what she could have done other than what she did to get herself out of that situation. She was in a rough place, and she's in a worse place now. She's 6 feet under.
Yeah. She's long gone.
Yeah, it's kind of tragic in a way. You see that she's so desperate she has to change her identity and her physical appearance multiple times just to have a lick of freedom.
Human desperation, man.
But
it's crazy.
When it comes down to it, like justice normally will be served in some cases. Definitely in this case.
Definitely.
I think it's interesting how laws in Japan work like this as well, because like it was the 80s and they were so like lenient about it. Thinking how peaceful of a place it must be. Like in America, we have crime everywhere.
Oh yeah, everywhere, every corner.
Like there's no statute of limitations. And like think about the family of this person, like they might never get justice. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for our final story. And we will see you after these messages. Thank you for watching Obscure Occurrences. Please join us next time to talk about more unnerving unsolved mysteries. Remember to always be careful of your surroundings, because you never know what's going to happen.